What's up guys, and welcome to a video where we're finally going to dive into the Evo. If you don't remember kind of what happened in this car, I did a track day, I think it was, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 months ago. And I had a failure that I thought was an electrical issue, which turned out to be a rocker arm that flew off. Figured it out, car's good now, and now we get to dive into the new mod that I've been waiting to show you guys and am extremely excited about. So, we have 2 turbos here. I'll give you a heads up, one is mine and one is for Collete. This is a G series that GCG Turbos over in Australia has machined into a stock housing for me. If you guys don't remember my older videos, I love the stock housing setup on the Evo because you have no clearance issues. You can run the stock AC lines, you can run the stock oil lines, coolant lines, everything just fits nicely, bolts right up. You don't need to do any custom modification. Although with this, I'm assuming I'll need to just kind of change like one of the intercooler pipes. But I like to keep everything stock, nice, kind of Japanese inspired in the sense that it's just very simple, easy to service. And for a while, I had the FP green ball bearing turbo on my Evo. It made around 520 wheel, but that was pushing the turbo to the absolute limit. On the track, I know I was working at a little bit overkill. IATs go through the roof. That turbo was probably happier a little bit in the high 400s range. This is the G25 550, and this is the G25 660. If I was building an autocross Evo, I think that I would probably choose this just because it's going to spool like crazy. This is my favorite turbo. This is what I run on my SR20 on both this car and on my Cream S13. And it is just like instantaneous blast of boost at any RPM. Every time you come off and on the throttle, there's zero transient lag. And then this is the G25 660, which I only have experience on my Chaser. I'm going to be using this on my Evo because of the fact that I want to make sure I don't end up losing power with this switch. I think the 550 will be happiest around the high 400s. I've made 520 on this turbo on an SR, but that's like maxed out. And I've made almost 600 with this turbo, the 660, but again, that's like maxed out. So I think this will be happiest around like 450 wheel or so, which will be perfect for Collete. She wants a nice snappy response. And then this should be a little bit better for revving out higher and making in the mid 500s. If I can make 550, I can rev out, not have the turbo fall flat on its face, and have better response than I currently have, I'll be stoked. I love the G series. They sound sick, their response is great, their reliability is great, and I've been dying to put one on my car, but I didn't know that anyone made it machined into a stock housing. So GCG came through. I didn't know it existed, but it does, and now we have it. It's got a Turbo Smart internal gate built onto it, and it's ready to go on. So we'll swap it out real quick, and then Jamie's gonna come this weekend, and we're gonna get to tune both my car and Collette's on the same dyno at the same time, and we'll be able to see overlaid data of both these setups. I'm gonna retain this MAP manifold that I have. Again, just trying to take apart the least from the car that I need to, purely just swap out the turbo. On these Evos, it's actually really easy to get to. Just unbolt the radiator, drain it, pull it out, pull the intake off, and then I can pretty much access everything. So we'll do that, get her on, and see how she sounds. This is me explaining to Mike how I want this montage to go. Like, we're taking the ASMR route, so where you just hear the wrench like, and you hear like the dribbles of water go.
Oh, sorry. You're supposed to let him know well.
Then I'll put that in. I still think it's mind-blowing on these Evos that you can use the stock like little intercooler hose and it'll hold up to like 35 pounds of boost. It just goes against everything that I would expect in my head. Literally feels like a sock. One little thing that's really helpful whenever you're pulling any setups off is to use little tape so you don't forget what lines go to what. So this one will go on the wastegate line. And we've got our boost reference on the turbo elbow, which looks like it'll be easier to get to from the top.
The weird part is not all of them are like that stiff. You know
Yeah, it's just the newer ones.
Yo.
Yo, last time I did this, I was doing it with like it's still hot because I remember I drove over to Tommy's shop and then I had to change my turbo. So much more miserable than doing it with it cool. I was burning my elbows and stuff, and then I had Tommy yelling slurs at me. This is so much nicer. Okay, I got one more oil feed line, and then we should be chilling. All right, we've got all lines disconnected from the turbo, no intercooler piping, no exhaust, and O2 sensor disconnected, so we should be good to drop it now. I made the mistake before of getting too excited and not disconnecting everything, so try to do that or you might end up damaging your lines and being stupid like me. I probably can't fit a socket on that. Ooh, these are a little loose. Whoop. There we go. Oh, the oil line was fighting us, that's what it was. Then fully take it off. There we go. So we have the two turbos side by side now, just comparing everything to make sure when we go to install it, it'll be a simple install. Obviously, I'm going to try to transfer the lines and everything over to stay exactly the same. At first glance, it looks like the FP Green is a much bigger turbo. We actually measure the turbine on the cold side. The one on the Garrett is a hair bigger. And just to reiterate as well, like this turbo is great. I think the power goals for what I want to use the car for was perfect, but it lacked a little bit on that transient response. So every time I got back on throttle after shifting, it just took a second or two for the turbo to spool up. Not even a second, we're talking probably like milliseconds, but enough to where I can notice it and I know that it's costing me time on the track. And I know that that's one of the things that I love the most about the G25 line is because when you come off and on throttle, the turbo is just instantly right there. But the smaller package is also convenient because you can fit it in a lot of places where you wouldn't be able to otherwise. I'm going to look on the exhaust side and see how those sizes compare. Looks like it got better wastegate control though on this setup. This looks a little bit bigger than the OE style with this like type of flap. Fun little trick, probably common sense to a lot of people, but if you ever want to check to make sure threads are the same, you can kind of just like rock them in each other and make sure they line up, which indeed they are. So we Gucci. You ever just really want to do a burnout? That's pretty much what happened tonight. I wanted to pull Z-Roy out, make sure she still had it in her. Sure enough, still terrifying. It builds smoke so fast that like I feel like the engine smoking when it's actually just tire smoke going underneath the car and like coming up from the front. Wild, man. It leaves some dark marks too. Yep. Yep. Back to Evo stuff. Unfortunately, it wasn't as plug and play as I originally expected. One thing that I had to do was space the fan up just a hair. I drilled these holes out a little bit and spaced it up just enough because the wastegate was hitting ever so slightly here, but that should let the radiator sit nice and flush. And then I explained before how the new turbo doesn't have this little elbowy thing on there. So Marco whipped up some dimes and we got a nice little pie cut extendo arm thing. Now it matches up to the factory intake piping. Thank you, Marco. And yeah, the lines, we had to change the feed. The water lines will pretty much work with the stock ones, and then the drain needed to be modified slightly. So not exactly a bolt-on, but close enough. Are we recording?
I think so.
All right.
It's my first time.
All right. Am I gonna be able to get that bolt? Hopefully, let's find out.
I believe in you. Oh, Dad's here.
Hey, Dad.
Father.
My dad's actually here tomorrow.
My dad's here right now.
F***ing water line.
Ha! You gotta get a nut on it now.
Well, I also have to get a wrench on it. Remember when you wanted to get an Evo 10?
Mm-hmm. Silly boy.
We steered him away. No offense if you have an Evo 10. Great cars.
I did. I don't know much about them.
Yeah, they're just like, it's the fat pig of the Evos.
I
It's
know
the
that.
R33 of the Evos.
You guys work so much on
R33s are
these
sick.
cars that it scares me.
No, these are simple. Look how much room we got. We're doing a turbo change right now. This is a stock location turbo. It's
It's
not my fault Marco
later.
needed to basically replicate the R34 engine bay in pie cuts.
I had to give Johan a run for his money.
That's good. Thank you. One of the oldest tricks in the books, when you have tight clearance and you can't get an ideal wrench, you can always use a shorty. Another wrench on like this. And you can get maximum leverage. I'm not gonna lie, there was a little bit of headache with some line situation. Things were really close to fitting, but little things need to be modified, and it definitely took some time. Needed to trim the fan shroud to fit the wastegate, but we're all done. And the good news is, after learning all the little kind of nuances with the setup on my car, when we went to go do Colette's, we were able to avoid a lot of things that caused me headache to where it took half the time. So
Yeah.
your car's done. Her car is like instantaneous spool. It's kind of ridiculous and I'm very jealous, but I didn't want...
That's why I stuck with that one though. That's why I got the little baby turbo, because I liked the Evo 9 responsiveness. But I think it's gonna be fun to compare cars too.
Yeah, I just didn't want to take a step back because I'm trying to break that firm record, and I know if I went to less power. The thing is also, I didn't really mention this, I know with having a little bit, not even laggier turbo, but a turbo that doesn't hit as hard down low, I feel like it will upset the car less coming out of corners to where I can just floor it a little bit sooner, and it will be a little bit more linear. I'll still have the power, if not more, on the straights, but coming out of the corners before, it was so rowdy and it hit so hard that it kind of upset the car, where now I think it'll be much smoother. I'm gonna let you guys hear though how crazy these G-Series sound. I also changed my throttle body on this car. I stole one from the red car because mine was leaking a little bit. It's a common Evo thing. Ready for it to sound like a jet's about to take off? Have so much cool noise. I think I need to adjust the idle a little bit. I think the throttle body probably had a little bit lower idle than before. Collette setup's ridiculous. It's literally instantaneous spooling. Watch this. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It feels like it's building positive boost pressure at like 500 RPM. Wild. Mine's good, but it's a little bit more delayed. I also think that her cams are a little bit more responsive than mine. My car's never revved as nice as hers down low. It's always been a little bit lazier. And I know my car makes good power up top, so maybe my cams are just geared a little bit more towards the higher RPM range. Yeah, that's sick. Revving Evos together. Yeah, my car doesn't rev too nice, but I'm so jealous of how our car revs. What? I don't know if you guys can hear, but it's... I think around like $4 grand this thing's gonna be really, really woke. It's building like 3 pounds just revving. That ain't bad. It's weird seeing Jamie on this side of town. What's up, bro? Thanks for coming in. Just tuning some G-Series Evos. What was the bet on the first hit?
469, 2257.
Alright, let's see if you can make it happen. This car has a 22-pound spring. Collette is running flex fuel on hers, so I put a 18-pound spring in it just because 22 might be a little bit much on pump, but we'll see how she does. Just fix a little exhaust leak, but other than that, I think we're ready to rip.
Did Jamie tell you that he was tuning on the plane, like as he was flying here?
No, but I believe it. That's a Jamie move. It's easier to go to the moon when you're on the plane. Got G-Series spool, huh? Nice clean pull, 20 pounds, making 411. Not too shabby. We're not even in the efficiency range of this turbo though, so I bet 25 pounds we're gonna see some shit. Car was making some good power, but we started to get a little miss, so we're gonna try gapping the plugs a little bit tighter to see if it gets rid of it. Just now realized Colette's literally sleeping in the back of the car while it's getting tuned. Jamie's doing his thing. So that is pretty much identical power-wise to what we were able to make out of the old setup. However, at Redline, it's still making 500 wheel, where before it would fall off to about 450. Jamie was explaining to me, looking at the VE, he had to add quite a bit of fuel down low and add quite a bit up top, which is telling us that the turbo is coming on sooner because he's having to add more fuel to compensate for more air. What do you think of the turbo setup?
I love it. Responsive, holds the boost a lot better than the FP. Now I'm curious to see what it does at 30.
So I'm curious to see how it feels on the street. The biggest goal is to like better that transient in between gears. But I mean, power-wise, 28 pounds. I think we were over 30 before to make the same power. So just to explain to you guys, these little burbles that you see in the graph, the dyno just has a lot of noise. So if I go and put this down to 1, you can see it's just very noisy. It's an older dyno. So not the tune, just the dyno. We'll let the car cool down for a bit. Gonna do another pass before we throw Colette's car on the dyno, see what she makes. We were at 28 pounds. Turbo is definitely now gonna be stepping a little bit outside of its efficiency range. We're just gonna turn it up to 30, see what it makes. Still be 2 pounds less than what we were pushing it to before, but out of curiosity, I wanna see if this thing makes 550. This thing's loud. 542. Not shabby. So final graph you guys are looking at here. I'm sorry that we don't have torque. The dyno's just acting up. But Jamie did confirm he had to add quite a bit of fuel here, so that means we are making a little bit more power down low and in the mid-range. Then up top, before, I'll put my old graph on the screen, we were falling off to around like 450 at Redline. Now we're much over 500 and it really isn't falling down too much. So that's a good sign for this thing and it should help pull out on track. Now it's time for your car.
My turn.
Her car is gonna be like, whee! No, no, no. I don't know if the parking lot's big enough to tell a difference, but we'll see. All right, let's see. Roll into it. Oh yeah. I can already tell up top, but like usually with the old turbo, it was annoying. If I didn't like slip the clutch 1,000,000%, it would just bog.
Yeah.
No bog. Love the lack of bog. Let's see how she feels. Still has a little delay coming on, but it's definitely pulling way harder than it used to before. Now it's weird because like I can kind of shift this like a rear-wheel drive car and kind of like keep the throttle blipped a little bit before, but it just feels so abusive to the drivetrain with how aggressive this clutch is.
Yeah. So
it feels like you're just dumping it in every gear, you know?
where if the thing had like face-plated gears or like a box in it, you could just use the strain gauge, and I bet you the thing will stay fully spooled.
Oh yeah. This is sick though. Does it feel fast back there?
Yes. It's very hard to hold camera.
Yeah, that's rad. Colette's car's on the dyno, and this is a great example of kind of the biggest difference in what you get having the G25 550 versus the 650. You can see her car is making a lot more mid-range. The turbo comes on harder, sooner, and it makes all this extra power, but once we get past what appears to be like 5,000 or 6,000 RPM, hers starts to fall off, where mine kind of held true and we were able to get it to keep going up. So finding turbo life. This car's gonna be a ripper. It's gonna zip around. It's gonna be a blast. We're gonna turn it up more, but you guys will have to see her video for the final number. But this is the greatest illustration that I think we'll see of the biggest difference between having a tiny compressor and a bigger compressor. You happy with how it's looking?
Yep.
I told them they gotta see your video for the final numbers, and I was just gonna show them this.
Yeah. Let's do this one comparison.
All in all, successful evening. We got 2 beautiful Evos tuned courtesy of the boys at Titan for letting us use their dyno, and Jamie for being super rad and flying down here just to help us out. So tomorrow we are gonna hop on the dyno with R34, maybe look over a couple other cars, get some footage, do some stuff on the street, have some fun. But today, straight off the airplane into the Turbo S and straight to Titan. Jamie's the man, super appreciative, both cars rip. Check out Colette's channel if you want to see her launch her car ignorantly as it was sick.
I love my car. Evos are great.
Best car ever. Yep, agreed. All right, there you have it, folks. Good night.